And it's happening. Welcome to A Fistful of Vinyl. I am Alec. I am here with my heterosexual life mate, John. And we have a very special interview today. John, would you like to introduce our guests?
Yeah, we have Mike, who's been on the show before. Mike.
Hi, thank you very much for having me
Thanks for
again.
coming back and contacting me about the whole process. And Roddy.
Hello. Roddy Radiation. Just after Specials, do my own thing over here at the moment. My new band.
What's the name of the band?
Skabilly Rebels.
Skabilly Rebels.
Yeah, it's sort of like we play a cross of ska and rockabilly in a punk sort of way.
So what does that mean? Something we talk about a lot. What does that mean to be like a punk sort of way?
Good question. Angst, maybe. Punk sort of, you mean it, man.
Yeah, man. Because we interviewed a few people recently, and we keep asking them this question.
Yeah,
what does it mean to be a punk?
Yeah, what is punk rock? What is the role of punk rock in society?
It's terms that like press give things or like pigeonhole you with sometimes.
Sure.
But you know, like it's probably all rock and roll really, but like punk's pretty close. The rockabilly's like not far up, you know.
Yeah.
But like reggae and ska mixed with those elements is a whole different genre, you know.
Yeah.
But a very unique thing that happened there in Coventry, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a strange crossover, yeah. From back in before the war, you know.
Before you lost your arm.
I think initially the concept's quite unusual because you've got reggae music, which is quite passive, and you've got ska music, which is passive aggressive, and then you've got the sort of guitar playing that Roddy does, which puts another element on it. I call it new wave.
Yeah,
it's a mixture of things.
It's an unusual.
Well, the Specials and where I've always came from, it's about mixing up different styles. Most things have been done before, so like it seems like the only thing that's left is like mix up styles you wouldn't expect to hear together. You know?
Yeah, too.
And that's the new thing.
Yeah, I mean they always say like no art is new art, or at least no good art is new art.
Well, you've got the rockabilly element in here as well, and I got the pleasure of hearing most of the album in the rather frantic car journey. and it is the rockabilly element. Roddy mentioned the Stray Cats, and I hadn't thought of it.
I think it's like I tried to explain to people like it's like the Specials crossed with the Clash, and a bit the Stray Cats thrown in.
Yeah.
Which I like.
All fast forwarded 30 years.
Yeah, but that's the easy answer. You know, like it's more involved than that. You know, there's a lot of blues and other stuff going on. But like, you know, that's the easy way. Like, the music should talk for itself. You know, the music should say what it means. You know, like, talking about music's always difficult because like. Music, especially listening to, you know.
I mean, I thought one of the most interesting things about some of your earlier music, as far as like genre bending and combining things, is the fact that you guys did that cover of Take 5.
That's right.
Which is like such a traditional, seminal jazz piece.
Well, it was because the keyboard player Jerry Dammers was like a bit of a jazz buff, you know.
Yeah.
But the whole band were like different, you know, kind of personalities and musical tastes. So like. The drummer's kind of like Motown, Stax, you know, the bass player's probably kind of funky.
Yeah, especially
whatever, you know, like, and
so it really just played off like the fusion, the synthesis of all of these different genres and how they kind of intersected.
It was a weird mixture, and it worked, you know. Like, it's probably more luck than like planning, I think, but.
How very modest. I actually do think seriously.
No, I think it's like sort of like. It was like I said on an interview this morning. I did. 11 o'clock in the morning.
So you could have been saying anything.
What worthwhile interview takes place at 11 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
But it was,
It's 12:30. This is where
I
it
was half
happens.
asleep.
but it was an extremely exciting period. The ska and the punk period were separate, and then it joined.
Yeah.
In England,
It
and it was coming out of the
political.
Midlands.
Yeah.
Socialist comment, you know.
I'd love to hear more about the politics of it. Talk to me about this sort of like.
Well, in the
behind
UK at the time there was a lot of unemployment, and that Margaret Thatcher was our prime minister, and like
Fondly remembered, it seems.
no.
That was my attempt at British way.
Well,
Sorry.
she was for like the rich people.
Mm.
Yeah.
She didn't give a hell about the poor people. There was a lot of people unemployed, and
She created the 3-day week. She screwed the minor thing up.
yeah, she sort of, you know. But out of that came like a lot of good music and social expression, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that's always been impressive to me about, especially the UK punks, and that beginnings of those eras in like the 70s and the 80s, is that like you guys wrote so many songs.
I went to the very early Sex Pistols and Clash shows like in London.
I mean, I think so many of the
It
songs
wasn't
that you guys
what,
wrote.
like what you see in the movies.
Yeah.
No one was walking around with like mohawks.
That was later. That was the King's
Yeah.
Road punk,
Yeah.
the picture postcard punk.
Suit jackets, you know, they're wearing like school blazers with safety pins in, you know. So it was cheap and like you made it yourself. You buy second-hand clothes, and it wasn't like buying expensive designer stuff. That came a bit later, you know.
There wasn't so much a uniform, it seems. It's sort of like a
Yeah,
haphazard
it
apparel.
that's more into the 80s. It became a certain, like, you had to dress
Designer.
that way, you know,
Yeah.
Designer punks, yeah.
Yeah, you do now. But yeah, I think that it's interesting that so much of this music that was mainstream is such a big word, but was so anti what it meant to be like popular or like wealthy or in some ways. Like you guys were writing music that was ending up on like the #1 charts or like top 10 songs
Yeah, well,
in the UK.
that's...
But there's such a small selection of music that is like punk and is aggressive and can be like revolutionary that ends up becoming popular.
Yeah, that is somehow
So how was that?
palatable.
Well, it's because the kids sort of get angry, I guess. Like people, the kids are growing up and buying the music on CD or vinyl or whatever, you know, because they need a spokesman, somebody to speak for them, and like each generation has their own spokespeople, you know.
Would you say that's sort of the role of punk rock within the political schema, is to be the spokesman of the sort of underspoken or underrepresented crowd?
It's like punk rock heroes or ska musicians or whatever, like the underdog, you know, meaning like the person on the street is close to a musician, because musicians don't always make lots of money.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So like,
Seems oftentimes a better way to go.
you know, so we're closely related, can we understand?
Yeah. Empathy.
You have periods of time sometimes when like you are a musician where like it's like being an actor, you know, I guess, almost. Where like actors say like, I'm resting, which means I'm out of work.
They're in a hammock. They're in a creative hammock.
Yeah.
I'm just dating myself for a while.
Yeah, but I've got to say, you know, I saw Specials, you know, on the reunion, I saw them on the last tour, spoke about it a little bit, and I thought that the sound had changed, because there seemed to be a bit of an orchestration element, and that the punk element was still there, courtesy of your guitar. But I really enjoyed the orchestration.
Obviously, over the years, we're better musicians now, so we're probably playing it better, you know. But
How were you when you started? Were you like?
Too fast, too loud, and too drunk.
Yeah, but that's how it starts in my hands. Yeah.
But no, there was still a raw energy. But the thing was, what I saw at Alexander Palace was just what was a stadium version of the Specials, but it still had that raw edge. It wasn't like uber polished, but I did enjoy the orchestration with it. I thought that was a nice element.
Well, I think the thing is, you got to keep it real. You know, you shouldn't like. It's not about like, hey, let's do the same old rubbish again. You get paid more.
My
money.
point entirely.
You know
My
what I mean?
point
Yeah,
entirely.
So like, it's got to be real. It's got to like, you got to still believe what you're singing about. You know?
So how was that to like have been making music for as long as you've been making music and still like believing what you're believing, writing music?
Well, you
about
don't
that?
sit down every day and think, right, I'm going to write a song about some person on the street,
Yeah.
or underprivileged or whatever, or you know. But you do sometimes. You know, sometimes you write songs about other things. You know, but like, you know, you should make a comment. It's sort of going back to Woody Guthrie and people like that.
Yeah.
Sort of like, it's all connected. You know.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned
a lot of Jamaicans artists had that same
Woody Guthrie.
that same sort of thing where they're a spokesman for their people. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's really funny that you mentioned Woody Guthrie, because the genre of music that we specialize in, folk punk, the crossroads of folk and punk, kind of all stemmed from the Woody Guthrie mentality of, you know, doing it yourself.
This
and
machine kills fascists.
Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly.
This machine kills, yeah.
Yeah, the machine does kill.
Yeah.
And there are some bands that still, like, we have a friend who is in a band who has a coffee mug that says "This machine kills sleepies" on it.
Yeah.
Like, the saying is still around and it's still like driving people.
I think Pete Seeger had something similar on one of his
Yeah,
guitars.
he died
Oh,
recently.
Pete Seeger,
Yeah.
We built a playlist for him when he passed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's an excellent musician.
It's a shame sometimes. Like, a lot of people don't get recognised until they're dead. You know?
Yeah.
I think Seeger had recognition within the right group of people.
Yeah,
I think the
but-
people who would appreciate him the most all knew about him.
Yeah, the ones
Yeah.
knew, but like a lot didn't. Like.
Well,
Yeah.
what you end up with is you end up with higher profile artists like Bruce Springsteen, who dedicated an entire album to recording
wow.
Seeger's hits.
But it just goes to show people that are earning the mega bucks are giving back to the people that inspired them, which didn't make any money. It's like some of the early punk bands that sort of inspired the likes of Green Day or Rancid, you know. Like, they went on to make a lot of money, but some of those early bands that inspired them didn't make, you know, nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So, speaking of inspirations and stuff, you said that some of your drummer was a Motown drummer and you had like a funky bassist.
Yeah.
But like, so what kind of stuff influenced your guitar playing? Like, what kinds of music did you grow up listening to?
Well, I used to listen a lot of the black blues players a lot when I was a kid, and
Like Lightning
Jimi
Hopkins era?
Hendrix,
Or Robert Johnson.
all sorts really. I couldn't just list that
Yeah.
long, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Small Faces, the Kinks, all that sort of 60s UK sort of pop
Yeah.
stuff. Obviously the Ramones, Stooges, New York Dolls.
Yeah.
But then again, stuff like T-Bone Walker and some like swing, jazz, and all sorts really. I think if you're a musician, you don't tie yourself down to any particular genre really. Because you never stop learning. You know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe something.
Now, you mentioned an interaction with The Clash earlier. I was reading on the vast interwebs that you guys opened for The Clash in
Yeah, we did a whole
'73 on
our
Parole
first
tour.
major tour. Yeah.
Talk to me about that experience and how that came to be and what that was like.
We got lucky and got the support thing. But like the same, we were getting paid very, very little money. And we were sleeping in the van. You know, we stole a big judo mat from some sport sports hall we played. We put that on top of all the amps and slept on it, you know.
Yeah.
So every night we're sleeping there, and like we didn't eat very well, you know.
No. I don't know if ramen was a thing back then,
Right,
but
yeah,
you would have
anyway.
eaten a lot of it if it was.
I remember me and Jerry Dam as a keyboard player, like sometimes we go in a bar and like wait till some guy went to the bathroom and steal their beer. You know? We were that broke.
So punk.
No, true.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
Yeah. Well, you get
But,
by.
but they looked after us, and like the Clash was sort of similar in a lot of ways, and I don't know, the way they politically and all the rest of it, they were for like the poor man, you know, to work, and underprivileged, and sad, lost and lonely.
Yeah.
Certainly. Absolutely.
So how is it going from something like playing a major tour with the Clash to playing like small venues in Long Beach, like you've been doing now?
Well,
Like, do you like
we
one
never-
more than
like-
the other? Or?
as a musician, I've played like huge festivals, like to probably 100,000 or more. And I've played solo gigs to 50 people in
Yeah.
the bar, you know. And the solo gigs to 50 people scare me more than the big gigs.
But the
Thousands.
specials reunion was so big.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they were
we
huge venues,
we sold it was
massive.
a big venue in London, Brixton Academy, and we broke the record.
Was it 5 nights?
8.
8 nights.
8 nights at
nights.
one
But,
venue.
You know,
Sold out.
these gigs
I mean, like, in
are
advance, so the place was like ran every night.
these
Yeah.
gigs have been
We
legendary.
played 8 nights in a row. God, was I tired.
But you still do your solo gigs in between, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, you know, sort of some of the other guys do as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think that last time I came in, it was Neville Staple, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You were listening to his solo stuff,
Yeah.
and he does the same as well.
yeah, well, Neville's a grafter the same as me. You know, we'll keep working till we drop. You know.
Yeah. I mean, something that Laura Jane Grace from a few weeks ago was saying was that
Lifers.
there are these people who are lifers, right? They're musicians
Yeah.
who they'll make music until they fucking die.
You know, I
Like,
didn't-
they don't know what else to do.
I didn't talk
What-
about
what
that. when
else
she
you
mentioned that. It's
gonna
such an
do?
ominous
yeah,
way to
yeah,
say it.
exactly.
Like the only other time you hear lifers is like people are serving a life prison term.
Yeah. It's
But to
almost-
do the small gigs in between the big gigs
Yeah.
actually
Well,
means
it's
no half term,
Well, it's like
no
so-
summer holiday.
You know,
Yeah.
on the specials tours, you know, like
It's a way of relaxing.
until recently, like we'd have road
A ridiculous
crews and
way
we'd
of
have like, you know, catering and
Relatively.
nice hotels, and I'd do gigs in my own band or on my own or whatever. And like it's, you know, like you walk down the road and buy a burger, or like you stay on someone's sofa.
Yeah.
Someone's sofa, you know. So, but it keeps you in touch, you know. Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't get like completely detached from where you come from. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially you were saying making music for the sort of forgotten.
Yeah, well that's it. Like I think it would be a problem if you were like. Well, I think so anyway. I'm sure like a lot of major artists find it harder once they've lost touch with their roots, because they got that much money and they're in this big house and they don't see nobody, and they got some people. Everyone's a yes man or a flunky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
It must be hard. I don't know how Springsteen and people like that manage to keep in touch with what they're doing. I
Yeah.
don't know. It must probably make a big effort, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine it's astronomically difficult, since Springsteen's ability to keep in touch with his more basic self makes him incredibly unique. There's not really anyone else.
Well, I find it
who's pulling
strange,
off
like,
him.
even like on the specials level, like I stopped going out to local bars and stuff because like I get some guy go like, yeah, you're rich, buy me a beer. And I go like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll buy you a beer. But just people start having a go at you.
Yeah.
That's quite an English thing, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? I don't think it's so much of an American thing. I think it's
Americans
very
treat their
much-
celebrities with respect.
No, we
No,
just
it's sort of like
stop.
in
We don't
England,
characterise
if
them.
if you make money, there's that backlash thing.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the class system in England.
And like things with the specials, like
Yeah.
in the 80s, we didn't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, I was back on government assistance like about 7 years after the band split up.
Yeah.
I was broke, you know.
After massive
I was selling me guitars
right.
and everything. You know.
Yeah, after you had been releasing like
So like, and like what we've got recently, you know, is probably our pension, you know. It's that bit true.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the messages that came along within punk rock, and specifically within the Specials in their heyday. I was surprised to read about some of the more progressive ideals that you guys were able to put out, including messages like anti-racism, messages of like pro-birth control or pro-choice. Can you talk a little bit about those messages and then how they found their way?
The thing is, like, where we were from and the English beat and that, it wasn't that unusual to have mixed race bands. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like we weren't the first to do it, you know.
Yeah.
So we didn't see it as being unusual.
I think though, because of the label two-tone,
Yeah.
Well,
emphasised
yeah.
within the second wave of ska.
Yeah.
Well, I think obviously like, we had to sort of. Well, at that time in the UK, there was the National Front, or like a right-wing fascist organisation. So like, we had to make a stand against them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like, we probably went a bit more further into like trying to educate some of the kids not to believe those stupid ideals. You know?
To
That's good to
avoid
know.
the sort of blind indoctrination that was being handed
There's a
to
lot.
them.
It still goes on today, and it's still the same in the UK now. Except they're blaming all these East Europeans now. It used to be the blacks, now it's East Europeans coming in, stealing our jobs and whatever, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's allowed to say bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can edit it too.
Okay.
Right.
Screw you, I can edit it. You're not going to do anything.
Oh, watch
That's
it.
all I did say. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
So how was it working? Speaking of two-tone, like how was working with two-tone records and stuff?
But as Joey Damon as the band leader's concept was like to have a movement, not just one band.
Yeah.
It was like to have like a whole movement of several bands, all with the same message, and like, almost like some kind of not army, but like
Like a
influence
militia
people,
or something.
you know, yeah. He was very strong about that.
Yeah.
And we all fell in behind it. We all believed the same, you know.
Yeah.
But then again, I think personally, like, we were put up on a pedestal for a while, and we were supposed to be there to sort of tell the kids how to live and how to behave, and you know, no one's perfect. So it's like to actually sort of be a spokesman for a generation. It's not always a good idea. We all make mistakes.
It comes with its sacrifices, it seems.
But you were on top of the pops. That was for the youngsters, but you were also notably on the old grey whistle test as well, with another audience. And the audience, it was.
It crossed over to different
It did, yeah.
people. Like there was little kids getting into it with a fashion element because of the clothes,
Yeah.
the whole like rude boy look, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then there was the intellectuals liking the strange mixture of music and
the ethos.
lyrical content and the songs about current situations. You know.
Very timely because it's cyclical. It's all out.
Well, at that time,
it's
when
happening again.
it all kicked off with the riots in the UK, and like Ghost Town came out just then, you know, and like over here, like they were showing like the riots in Liverpool and
Yeah.
This is like early 80s, right? Like 81?
Manchester, and like we were playing Ghost Town. It was like a soundtrack, you know.
Yeah, right.
Which, you know, it's kind of...
It was a soundtrack to a generation, you know.
Yeah.
But the youth was getting angry, you know. They hadn't got anything any prospects.
Yeah.
They were angry and they were rioting, you know.
Concrete Jungle.
No, Concrete was about...
It was about rioting within...
No, it was about...
What was it about?
About being beaten up and mugged.
You're gonna...
Equally unpleasant.
Yeah.
No, I got that 1976. It was just bad. I lived in a rough part of town at the time, and it was just sort of bad. You walking out from the pub, and people would just beat you up because you looked a bit different. You know?
Yeah.
It's the way you were dressed, or maybe any reason sometimes. Right, song about it.
You wrote Rat Race.
That's about the upper classes. No, the class system in England.
Great track.
You know, where like you can't afford to go to college or university unless you got money anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we know what you
and
mean.
you need the university.
Well, that's true now, but anyway, in those days, if you were from a certain school, even if you got D's, you could get into Oxbridge.
Yeah.
But if you got A's, but you were from that region, you probably wouldn't get in.
Yeah.
And so, even that is relevant today, but it's actually now, if you come from a specific, you can have people from a very rich country that will be able to buy their way in. It's still the same.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's about privilege, isn't it? Really? It's like some people are privileged and get that kind of thing, and some don't. It's just, you know.
Yeah, and it still seems to be the case that people who are privileged feel like they've earned it in some way, which I think is the big veil.
Well, I was in a college bar in Coventry, and I used to go in there because the drinks were cheaper. They were in the pubs outside the college. You know. So I used to go in there, and I overheard some young college kids saying what they're going to do when they left college, you know. And they all had jobs set up for them by their parents.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, you know, why are you here for? Because like your place probably better going to somebody that hadn't got a job to go to.
Yeah.
And who probably might need it more, you know.
Right.
That was the idea behind the song, you know.
Nina Simone springs to mind when she was pipped at the post by somebody else to get into, I think it was Harvard, on the classical music course. She didn't get the gig. The other guy got the gig. She absconded from classical music, jumped out of the window, and in anger started playing in the jazz clubs.
Yeah.
And got spotted by the, I think it was Atlantic Records, but that might be wrong. But it's an amazing story of the angst. We spoke of the angst actually kind of coming through,
Like we're in
and it converted her into jazz. She didn't even know she could sing. So what do you call that? Triumph over adversity or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, the Rat Race thing, you can trace it back to Nina Simone. I might not have the story exactly
a bit of anger sometimes is good, you know, like, as long as it's channeled in the right direction.
And then she became a political activist. Through music, though, you know.
Yeah.
Well, she was like a big fan, a big hero, Pauline Black, you know, like the Selector, lady vocalist.
Right, yeah.
Like,
Great singer,
Pauline was sort of very much a feminist sort of icon.
Yeah.
And you know, like, she wouldn't stand for any rubbish from guys, you know.
I know. I know a little bit about that.
She kicked my bottom a few times.
She had a few dealings at Trojan.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was a really progressive thing to be doing at the time, the feminist movement and like the rude boy girls.
Like the body snatchers were like
exactly.
all girls ska band.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
you know,
Polystyrene's another one.
Yeah, who we talked
Yeah,
about.
Absolutely.
X-ray specs.
They get it tougher than the guys, you know.
Yeah.
It's harder for them to sort of deal with the suits, the guys are looking at, because they always want to package them as some kind of sexy thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn into a
So
marketing
if
gimmick.
you used to do that, whereas nowadays it's gone back to that again now, you know, so like young female vocalists are like pushed into putting on this kind of image, you know, which is, you know, like if you're a guy, you know, oh yeah, that's nice, but like if it was your daughter
Yeah.
or your sister, you might think differently, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or you might not.
Bring it on.
Depending on the level of parenting.
Yeah.
God, I feel like a saint.
You had characters like this. Wendy O. Williams, the Plasmatics, you had them all.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I still love like Debbie Harry, you know, like
Yeah.
she was great. She kissed me like when I was a kid, you know. She introduced the Specials at Long Beach because she's on the same label, Blondie were, you know.
Yeah.
And like it, you know, it made my day, you know.
Can I say that she was my childhood dream? I saw her for £1.50 at Birmingham Odeon. I was like 14, 15 years old, and she was that big, but I had posters all over my wall. If only I'd have known she was about 36 years old.
At the time,
It was
she
extraordinary.
was older, yeah.
She was like a MILF,
Yeah.
you know?
Milf,
But
yeah.
what a fantastic MILF, you know?
Yeah. Right. Talk to you.
And actually, I like her new stuff. I haven't
Yeah.
didn't like the last batch, but she's doing something that sounds kind of almost Talking Headsy
Sure.
with a twist.
Yeah.
She's come up with something new, and it's the first good thing she's done, in my opinion, for a long time. But she's bounced right back. You know, I say she. It's Blondie is a band, of course. We
Sure.
forget that,
Yeah.
but she's the spearhead
Oh, absolutely.
for great pop. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's just nice, sort of like those sort of. It goes back to the Shangri-Las and all those kind of like girl pop groups, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which were great. And a lot better than some of the girl bands and boy bands you see nowadays, you know.
There are some of the bands in our genre, the genre we specialize in especially, there's been a huge movement again of this feminist sort of progressive sexuality, you know, and there are a lot of people now, especially with the sex change of Laura Jane Grace, and
I
there's a
guess
lot
the
of
sex change of Tom Gable.
yeah, there's a lot of support for the trans and for a lot of these people
For the
who are-
for the
I
non-gender
think
for
sort
the
of like-
non-binary gender groups.
yeah.
That'd be like 10 years or whatever, like there's a rebellion going on of some description, you know, I mean, like sort of because the music business tend to throw like certain styles. They think they discover something, then they completely ruin it by making copies of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it comes around.
Becomes manufactured.
Yeah, so
Like you
it
said.
comes back from the street.
Like you said with the clothing, eventually, you know, when you start
Yeah.
to sell it in stores, it becomes a totally
Yeah.
different thing. When you start to
It-
sell
it
something,
comes
it's
back,
supposed to be-
right?
How could Hot Topic
Yeah,
be punk?
Kiss, corporate glam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm not snagging Kiss off, but that was corporate glam.
Yeah.
No, the kids will like do their own thing,
Yeah.
and then like the business will try to take it over, you know,
Yeah.
whatever style it is, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know some of the people from the Sex Pistols have said things about the fact that the only way they were ever stopped from starting a revolution was because people in the corporate world were able to sell some of the stuff they were using.
Well, the thing is, like, you might start off with good intentions, and then like you start getting paid well.
Yeah.
Getting
You're
endorsed
in
by Vivian
hotels
Westwood.
and like other
That has a
things,
way of
other things
veiling.
are going on, so like you lose track.
We spoke of safety pins earlier on, and within the punk thing, and interestingly enough, Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols is a designer and a fantastic artist, and rumour has it that he actually was part of the original Rocky Horror Show design. If you look in the Rocky Horror Show, put the safety pins in.
Honestly.
And it really was a DIY thing, because that was a show on top of in a tiny space.
I remember when it came out at the time, it was sort of pre-punk, like you say, but it was kind of like happening with a few other things, you know.
Yeah. English theatricality, but you know, from the street.
Yeah.
But then it becomes, we brushed upon it earlier, the Mohican thing is the King's Road picture postcard punk.
Yeah.
Which was post-punk, really. Yeah. It was a post-punk thing. I think that...
Come in uniform.
Yeah. And I think that image might have been used on the very last Clash album called Cut the Crap, which wasn't the classic lineup of the Clash. Funnily enough, that album, it wasn't half as bad as people said it was.
I've never heard it, actually.
When you listen back to it now, it was quite good. But
I never heard it.
But this was a corporate punk image that got put across the globe. I think that the Americans had a completely different spin on it, which I thought was brilliant. I don't know whether you would, I always use the word new wave, but bands like Television and even bands like the Tubes, you know, they all embraced theatricality. But it all came from DIY. That's what I like about it. And I don't know what you think, Roddy, but I don't really think that there was a massive link between American punk, American new wave, and English punk. To me, were two totally different things. You know,
it was kind of connected.
Well, when it intertwined, it was great.
Well, I think English punk was based on American.
Well, you had the New York Dolls and
that's where I was coming from. Like New York Dolls, Stooges.
I think
Ramones, you know.
Yeah.
Which came out before all the Pistols and the Clash.
Absolutely, but they just, for me, they both just had a completely different spin. You know, when I listen to the Ramones, I can hear the Beach Boys and I can hear all that kind of thing.
I talked to like some of the guys in my band over here, like they were kind of part of the 80s punk thing in LA, and it was a lot more violent than the English equivalent. You know?
Yeah, I mean the South Bay punk scene here is like a thing of infamy.
Closest things like the Oi movement.
Yeah, well, the Oi, yes, Gary Bushell.
Which is like
promoted that.
They kind of like did like this skinhead punk sort of thing, which is even more working class or whatever than the original stuff. And it kind of, to me, it just got a bit yobbish. Got to the point where it was, and there was fascist elements moving in on that scene.
You had the business, you had the exploited, not to be mistaken for the message of someone like Sham 69, who had the best intentions at heart.
Yeah, Sham was great. Yeah.
But you know, attracted a rogue element in the audience. Just made a record with them.
So getting nasty, you know.
Just made a record with them with Anita Harris on lead vocals. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I'll play it to you. You'll quite like it. It was quite interesting.
Sure.
She knows her punk.
I need the bathroom. Sorry, guys.
Well, should we wrap this before you?
Maybe.
It's the bathroom is the fastest one. Is that right?
All right.
Yeah. Just give us a knock when you come back. So maybe we should spend this couple minutes talking about what you're involved with.
Oh yeah, Polyfest.
Polyfest, absolutely.
Yeah. I was gonna say before, just on the topic of what we were talking about, as far as
she's worked out better than.
Yeah.
In a way.
Absolutely. Let's give us more time to talk.
But as far as like.
Yeah, we're still going.
As far as like uniforms and stuff, right? What is the name? I was trying to remember the name of that song that she wrote, Up Yours, Bondage.
Oh, Bondage, Up Yours.
That's the one, right? And that's, I think, a song that was like kind of about this moment of switching over and realizing that it had become something that people were buying in stores.
Oh yes. Are we on?
We're still on, yeah,
Okay.
we're going to use all this.
Yeah, Oh Bondage Up Yours, written by Polystyrene and performed by X-Ray Specs, was, even though she was highly influenced by the Sex Pistols in a concert she saw in Hastings, she started hanging around in the new wave scene, and all the guys were very macho and they were wearing bondage, and she thought, I'm going to do it my way, so Oh Bondage Up Yours.
Yeah.
Followed by a track called I'm a Cliche, which she certainly was not, but her sense of irony was always there. Her sense of purpose was there. Her sense of lyric was there. I didn't understand all of the lyrics. And the track called Plastic Bag refers to drinking Dettol and scrubbing her teeth with Weetabix and all kinds of things. You know, some of her stuff was kind of freaky, but in a very good way, in a very entertaining way. And even when she hit you over the head at a concert with a handbag, the handbag was full of cotton wool. I got boshed over the head with a handbag in '77 at Cheltenham Town Hall, and it was a very soft handbag. But you know, with the braces on her teeth and her image, she was a fantastic role model for, you know, any girl out there. She was unusual in that she was mixed race. She was unusual in that she was the band leader. She was unusual in that she wrote the lyrics. She wrote the music. Youth, the noted producer of the Verve and the Orb and Paul McCartney, he produced her last standalone Polystyrene album. And on the day when it came for her to come in and play the demos, she just walked into the room and she sang 12 songs a cappella. And he said, well, can I have a demo? She said, no, that was then. And you know, he just did his magic underneath the melodies.
Yeah.
But you know, it was an unusual way of writing, just top line. I think Mark Almond writes like that, top line into a tape recorder.
Yeah.
But you know, we're talking about polystyrene here. A true one-off original character, and I was thrilled to do the concert put on by your DJ Frank. Frank has to take all the credit for putting an amazing lineup of artists. I can't name them all. I hadn't heard of all of them. One of them was called Gaze, and I think another one was on one of your shows tonight.
Yeah.
A fantastic program. We were missing one band called the Dickies, your band, an LA punk band, tremendous band, but you know, we have every intention of the Dickies playing the next one. They're very popular in England as a touring band. They sound kind of British. They're the most British sounding LA punk band of the lot.
I would say you do have some British elements too, though.
Yeah.
Funny when that happened.
They did the
Such
bananas.
praise.
They did the banana splits with great,
That's right,
with
that's
great
right.
gusto. Great fun band and still pack the
I think
audience.
it's like bands like Green Day and Blink.
182.
Yeah. They are a lot to sort of like the Clash and stuff like things, you know.
Certainly.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
certainly owe a lot to their predecessors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I guess we're all influenced by somebody, you know.
Which I guess I think this is kind of an interesting question to cap our interview. So punk as a genre, as both a musical style and an element of society, has persisted in a really amazing way for 40 approaching 50 years at this point. What do you think is the role of modern punk bands in the 2010s, either in the UK or the US or both for that matter, relative to their position in society?
Good question.
You.
I should imagine it's like we're still fighting the same battle. The war's not won. You know what I mean? That's about it. You know.
You're saying about along the lines of
It's
like
we're still the same enemy there. still the same problems there. So like, keep on fighting, you know.
Keep fighting, the classism, the indoctrination,
Well,
segmentation of society.
yeah, you're still saying what bugs you, which is like, goes back to the old blues players, but like, you sing the blues, but it might like change the world, but like, it kind of makes you feel slightly better voicing your opinion.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that the role of modern punk rock is just to continue to be pissed off about something? Just perpetually pissed?
I should imagine the new punk bands have got a different take on it. Well, it's like every generation thinks they invented sex, you know what I mean? But like, it's been going on for quite a long time.
Well, since the beginning of my generation, came up with it.
I think it's all about using different muscles, just something that you said earlier, write what is real, write what is in your
Whatever
head.
affects you, what affects you in your environment, what your friends are going through, real things, Sing about the stuff which matters to you, and that's what punk rock is to me, It probably won't change the world, but like, by voicing your opinion, it might change some people's ideals, and they might. There's like my generation now, my age group, are the people are in power. They're the ones that are politicians now. So hopefully, like some of them so and so people.
I find it interesting. I find it interesting we're talking more about punk than ska, but not perturbing, not perturbing at all. I just think that...
I think it's just sort of a natural term because that's the common thread between
a bit like Disturbed, but instead of being disturbed, you're perturbed.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it like is perturbed one notch under Disturbed?
Perturbing kind of threw me.
Yeah. Okay.
Perturbed like this back up.
Okay. Let's say the word.
He obviously went to better school than me.
No, don't believe a word of it. Don't believe a word of it. Okay, we've spoken more about punk than we have about ska, and I'm intrigued by that.
I think that.
Is that camera still working? Is the light's
camera?
gone off?
Oh, it has gone off, hasn't it?
Yeah. I must admit, guys, I'm getting to the stage. I'm that tired and worn out.
Yeah.
I can't.
Let's go then.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, we probably like.
Battery's dead. We'll be here all night. We still got the audio going.
Yeah.
You still got the audio going?
The audio's
How do we round it off though?
We can finish with a station
I'm
ID.
getting the stage now. I'm just that tired.
Okay.
Right. I'm
going
going
to. Sorry.
Well, I'd like to say goodbye. Rod is absolutely knackered, and we've got even further to go than him.
Yeah, we've kept some fairly mature gentlemen up to 1:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not that old.
I am.
I've got some bootleg stuff.
I'm 150.
But who's counting? You've been listening to A Fistful of Vinyl on KXLU 88.9 FM, Los Angeles.
And why do you call the toilet a bathroom? There's no bath in there.
There's sometimes a bath.
Okay.
Okay.
Was that the end of it?
Fair.
All right, our guests, once more, tell everybody who you are.
Okay, I'm Mike Bennett, and I'd like to thank your station and Frank and you guys for supporting Polyfest, and I'll be continuing to send you our new releases.
Brilliant.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Right.
Roddy?
Oh, thank you, Roddy Radiation, buyers, from Skabilly Rebels. I spin the Specials. I'm over here playing some gigs. Come see me and buy me a beer.
Fantastic. Well, John, this has been a haphazard interview at best, but it's come together in a pretty beautiful way.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you guys very much. This has been an absolute blast.
Oh, thank you.
You've been listening to KXLU.
Cheers, guys.
Get some sleep.